Hope you enjoy this video. It's going to be my team review for weeks 1 and 2 of the 2022 AFL Supercoach season. Hope you enjoy. Alrighty, so sorry that there wasn't a team review video last week. Obviously, it's been a bit busy, been a bit hectic. Actually, there's not an excuse. Should have been out, but the Wednesday starting game really hit me for 6, and I've just been scrambling a little bit for that. I'm here now. Weekly reviews will be coming, so expect to see those on the channel. Probably around Monday is a good day for me to book it in. In this episode, I'm going to go through how my team did last week, some changes that I made, and my trades and changes heading into round 3. So this is my score from last week. So I scored 23-10. Not a bad score, but there definitely is some things that caused it to maybe not be the best. I missed out on a few rookies on the bench, which definitely hurt my score. So not having Martin on field really hurt. Having Ward over Stevens on the bench, and potentially having McCartan over Hinge on the bench as well. So sometimes you can predict these things, sometimes you can't, but that's just Supercoach, right? That's week 1. So you do the best you can. We were ranked about 17,000th, which isn't too bad, top 11%, but this week we've done a lot better. So week 2 is a lot better. If you remember my team going into round 1, there were a couple of changes. So for some reason, I put Dixon on field over here. Had Dixon on field instead of having Hayes. Obviously, that's not the right decision, and we rectified that heading into round 2. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. DeConning coming out was bad. I think we did the right thing. I know I went Crisp really late into the week. Sorry, I went Stewart in really late into the week, and that definitely helped us out. He looks like he's got his role back. He looks like he's fit, and he's not going to go anywhere, which is really good. Round 1, I was really worried about Crisp, and you'll see coming into round 2 that I actually made some changes with him. Was it the best idea? Was it the worst? I'm not sure, but it happened. Lockheed Whitfield, round 1 was a big worry as well. He looked injured. He was holding his groin for a little bit, and we saw that in his scoring in round 2 as well. So what can you do? He's a potential trade out this week. George Hewitt. So George Hewitt seems to be the best 400k, I would call premium player that we've had in a while, and I know a lot of people didn't start him. If you're heading into round 3 and you don't have him, you're in a bit of trouble because he will jump up to 500k very, very quickly. And the potential to get someone now at a cheaper price versus having to spend 2 extra trades and a rookie who's made cash to actually get him in later on is a really big thing. Hinge is scoring a 50, so did all right. I thought in that round 1 game that he looked on the par, but he gave away a couple of frees, and maybe they didn't pass it to him as much, even though he was in the right position. Obviously, his round 2 score definitely helped to rectify that problem. Heading into the midfield, so Jack Mcrae. I didn't captain Jack Mcrae, or I didn't vice-captain him, even though I was preaching it throughout the preseason, and 133, you can't complain. I was really happy with Tuke Miller scoring a 137 because it means missing out on the Mcrae pick wasn't terrible. I also had Lockie Neal in there. Most people do, 140. He also had a monster round 2 score, which we'll talk about as well, and why you have to have him. But round 40, round 1 is not too bad. Mcrae, 157. So really, really happy that the pick worked out. He looked good in the preseason, and then in the scoring now, round 1, he looked really good as well. So really, really happy with that. Jared Berry. So Berry is someone to worry about, someone to look out for, and I have dropped him, or I will, at the end of round 2. Seems to have a really good first half and then fell off. I think he hurt his shoulder a little bit in the first game, which is what this scoring's from. I think he was on something like 56 at half-time, got injured, came off a bit, and then just kind of looked like he was standing outside the contest. And that's something that we don't really want with the player. He was getting midfield time, don't get me wrong. But if he's not getting involved, if he's not doing what he's supposed to be doing, then he's not the player for us. Horn Francis. So slow burn-ish of a player. He will score well. He did score well in round 2, which we'll have a look at. So if you don't have him, I think he's a must-have. Same with Dacos. So they kind of shared points around a little bit. Dacos in Collingwood side looks really good, and they look to give him the ball too. And for a rookie, that's phenomenal. That's what you want every day of the week. I did have Ward on field. Maybe I should have put Stevens, but Ward scored like a 150 in the preseason game. So I was like, you just play him. Rookie roulette, you don't know which way he's going to go. So Stevens 59, okay. There's 20 odd points that you've missed. You know. McDonald as well, did okay. And I got suckered into bringing Owens in. And it's not really good. I don't know who I could have picked. Maybe I could have had Hoff, and he was out round 2 because of COVID. So, we dodged a bullet there maybe. But Owens is going to end up being a dead rookie. So I'm hoping we can get some cheaper-ish rookies that I can potentially sideways to or downgrade to if a 102k becomes relevant. I think maybe Mccrae from the Dogs might come around at some point. But yeah, he's definitely a watch and see what happens. This early into the season, you don't want dead rookies. And teams that have 1 or 2 or 3, if they've got them, you're in a bit of trouble. It's not good. So Max Gawn, 92, someone to really, really be concerned about. Jackson's taking a lot of his time, and Gawn just seems a bit lazy at the moment. I've said that in other podcasts as well, that Gawn's just looking a bit lazy. And that's something we don't want as Supercoach owners. He's great. He was Ruck 1, I think, last year. Fantastic. But this is 2022. It's a whole different season. And if he's content with not getting the ball, with not diving into packs and taking massive marks like he did last year, if he's content with just standing back and letting other people in the team do really well, then maybe he's not a player for us. Just wait and see. He's not my guy that I have to get rid of in round 2, but I know a lot of people have downgraded him for the cash, and he will lose money. Don't get me wrong. He's not a guy that in previous years, if you didn't start him, it would take you 5 trades to get him in. This year just doesn't happen. Grundy did Grundy things, 124. Pretty good. I think he was one of the highest scoring rucks this week in round 1. So yeah, that's what you want, right? Dixon, 42, slow burn on the bench. He wasn't named round 2 because of COVID, so dead rookie, I'm not sure. Hopefully he comes back into the West Coast side. He didn't look too bad, so I'm hoping they'll give him a run. They need to play the kids. That's my opinion anyway. Josh Dunkley, 117. Oy. The pick worked out for us. I'm really happy, but, slow burn with that kind of play. I think most people had Josh Dunkley, so him scoring well benefits a lot of people. Some people took the gamble. Oh, yeah, the Dogs midfield, their team's stacked, blah, blah, blah. They said the same thing last year, and the team basically hasn't changed. Barring Bruce, who's out, the team's basically the same. So get Dunkley in if you have him. If you don't have him, because he's going to be scoring well. Butters did really well, 114. That's what we want to see. And then Cornelio scoring an 80. So an 80 for a 260k guy is really good. This week he did a little bit better, so round 2. But that's what we want from these guys who we took a punt on. I know his projected was like 50. I know his ownership is really high, but it's nice to be rewarded for the pick. And Cherry. So Cherry looks like he's actually taken on the number 1 ruck role, and that's what we like to see. So pretty good. Means that he's going to be picked every week. Means that if you don't have him, he's going to hurt, which for owners against non-owners is really good. And he's scoring. Potentially if he keeps up these scores and if someone like a Max Gawn drops down even further, he could end up being like a ruck keeper, which is crazy to think for a guy that's 200k. Like, that's huge value. And Rochelle. So Rochelle kicked 5 goals. It's not going to happen every week. But they look for him on field, which is the big thing. In round 2, which we'll have a look at next, he did have a bit of a dud game. But they look for him on field. And he's a round 1 rookie. This is his first year in the AFL and he's straight into the team. It means that they're going to play him every week. He may have up and down games, but the job security's there. And that's practically what we pay for. This year we have really limited rookies. So paying 180k is okay. But we want him to play and we want the ceiling scoring to be there. He won't score 100 plus every week, but he should be good for a 50 or a 60. And that means that potentially we can offload him at 350k if we're lucky. So that's all we're looking for. Durden kicked a couple of goals, showed everyone what he was doing in the preseason. I know he kicked a couple of goals in that game as well, so he looks really good. and Baldwin. So I'll show everyone what I did with my team in round 2, but Baldwin was a bit of a worry. I won't say much else from there. I thought he would do a lot better, but that's just Supercoach, right? And Nick Martin. So 114. I think he kicked something like 5 or 6 goals. He looked everywhere. 20 odd possessions, 25. Just looked everywhere. Looked like what a mature age player heading into a new side does. And that's really impressive. He did miss round 2, which we'll have a look at, but you got to get him. 102k for a guy that can pop out 100s. That looks like he's been in the AFL for 3 or 4 years already. How can you pass it up? You just can't. All right, let's have a look into our round 2 squad. This is how my round 2 team went. Just having a look at it here. We scored 24.67, and that's really good. Top 2% of scorers in the whole of Supercoach. How can you complain about that? You just can't, guys. We jumped 14,000 spots, which is really, really, really good. Really, you got to be happy with it. So it means that we're actually jumping up in rankings, which for someone who was, 20,000th last week, or 17th, but 17,000 jumping up to now 3,000 means that we're breaching the gap. We're not in the top 100 yet. Potentially we could be at some point, which is what we're looking for at the end of the season, but we're breaching the gap over a lot of players. It is only round 2. So the difference between, let's say, 3,800 and 1,000 might only be 50 odd points. We just don't know. So don't panic if you haven't done a lot. One thing you will notice from this is that we have done 2 trades, and I'll show you what they are heading into round 2. I had to make some changes. I had to bring some guys in that I was happy with. One backfired a little bit. We'll work it out, but one definitely worked out well for us. So let's have a look at the team. So in the back line, we have Stewart, 103. Banks up his 109, I think, from the week before. And that's what we're looking for. The guy that I did bring in this week was Aaron. And a 123 is what we want to see. North Melbourne is going to have a lot of ball in the back line, especially in the next few weeks, because we're going to get smashed every week. We're lucky to get the win against West Coast, I think. We didn't look the greatest. We had a couple of injuries out in the midfield that really hurt. But I think we've got a lot of nasty teams coming up and guys really on the rise. So North Melbourne defenders is the way to go. And even someone like a Cherry, who scored a 120 this week, they're going to be a lot of bounce ups. It's going to be a lot of ball in the middle. And that's what we kind of look for with these players. You wouldn't pick a North Melbourne forward to do well in the next few weeks because they just won't. But defenders and potentially ruckman, go for it. Short with the 136, can't complain, scored really well. Whitfield 70. So he's someone that I'm looking to offload this week. He looks injured. I know I spoke about him just before in the round 1 review, but he looks a bit injured on field. He looks like he doesn't want to get involved as well. And one of the knocks for him for round 1 and his scoring was, okay, he's playing in a small field. He's playing in a small ground where he can't run as well. He can't run and carry. He doesn't get utilised on the wing as much. And guess where they played this week? In the MCG. And guess what he scored? Still a 70. So he's kaput. If I don't trade him this week, he's likely to be 500k in 2 weeks, which is not what we want when it comes to actually offloading players and missing out on a good guy to actually keep the cash with. If I was to upgrade him to someone else, I would have to spend a rookie to do it, and I'm actually missing out on a bit. So if you hold Whitfield and he scores badly again, he almost forces you to keep him just because doesn't have any value after that. And that's something I don't want for a guy that I want to trade. George Hewitt, keeping up his score of a 100 plus, which is what you want to see. He will be 500k in like 3 weeks. So get him in now if you don't have him, because he's going to cost you a lot more. If you had Whitfield and not Hewitt, you could downgrade that, bank 100k and feel a lot better. Paddy McCartan, I'm happy with his 80 score. He scored that before Hinge scored at 84. So, what can you do? Keep that on the field. Sam de Koning should come back this week. So he's got to play in Geelong's backline. He just looks good. And he frees up Stewart a little bit more to do stuff. Stewart did only play 60% time on ground. I think he just got stuck in rotations for a while. He might have had a half where he played half the half. So, yeah, just see what happens there. I think his scoring could have potentially been something like a 120 plus this week if he actually spent a bit more time on ground. Jack Mcrae, so 142. You got to be happy with that. Another huge captain score from him. And you would have been happy, not choosing the guy that I picked this week, but Jack Mcrae. Touk Miller, another 140, did really well. He seems to definitely be the go-to man at Gold Coast, and that's what we want to see. I'm expecting 130 pluses, every week almost from him. And for a guy that you're paying 670k for, that's kind of what you want. He's that upper echelon guy. People who don't start these Uber premiums almost should be punished for not starting them. And having Mcrae and Miller not drop a lot in price is really beneficial for those guys who do have him, because we're missing out on one or two other players somewhere else just because we've paid up for those guys. So, yeah. I came and watched the Brisbane game after work. I think it was on the Saturday, and Lockheed Neal captain score. I dudded out this week and actually picked Dunkley. I got gypped into doing it by some people in the Discord. So having Josh Dunkley on field really hurt with the VC. I'm like, who can I pick? Lockheed Neal, let's go. And 198 is the way to go. As Shaq said in our podcast video this week, anyone playing Essendon should be your captain. And that's obviously what happened with Lockheed Neal. It's an option there. He should do okay against North this week. Maybe I'll VC him or captain him. But we're just waiting to see what's going to happen with the tag. North's lost a couple of midfielders, which means Lockheed Neal should dominate a bit more of the ball. And their midfield just looks really strong and their forward line looks strong. But North does have a couple of taggers who could move into the spot. Maybe a McDonald focuses on him. Maybe Greenwood comes in and keeps him to limited possessions, which is a bit scary. It has happened against people who've played North before. So Neal might go down in points, whereas someone like a Lyons or a Zorko through the midfield there does really well. It's something to look out for. Mcrae, he was the worry, I think, of this week. He was on something like 60 points at halftime and then ended up on a 71. He got put on the tag last week against Petrarca, I think, or Oliver, which kind of worked out for their scoring. Gold Coast only lost by like 12 points and the game was really close. But for us as Supercoach owners, 71's not fantastic. It might be his lowest score of the year. It might be kind of where his bottom ceiling is. So you got to be happy with that for a 340k. Bit of a watch list, hey. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. But it could be the difference between you considering him to be a keeper for the year and someone who you just want to upgrade and use the cash to upgrade somewhere else. So 50-50 what you want to do. Jared Berry. So similar to last week. Berry. Had a good first half. Did okay. Second half, I think his shoulder's still giving him issues, and that's why I'm going to trade him out this week. I have the potential to bring in a guy who I think is going to be a keeper for the whole year. And to me, personally, that just looks a lot better than Berry, who's going to be scoring 70s maybe, and potentially getting rested. So, Horn Francis, 98. I'm just going to say it once. If you don't have Horn Francis in your team, get him in this week, because North Melbourne's lost a couple of midfielders for quite a long time, and he's going to be playing a lot more mid. So he got a 98 with playing something like 50% mid in the second half of a game. He will score big. He is that kind of player, high impact player who now gets to do contested possessions and do everything else. How do you not bring him in, guys? You just have to. Nick Dacos had a few shanks in the game. I don't think he's someone to worry about. He will score well, but maybe he isn't the D6 keeper like a lot of people thought after that 98. So we'll just wait and see. He'll get to 400k, so we don't need to worry about him. Stevens, 95. I'm glad I put him on field and not someone like a McDonald or a Ward. He looked really good. He looks like he's slowly cementing this position on the wing, taking a bit of the Jordan Dawson role, which obviously Dawson left last year. So he's someone to definitely hold on to. If you didn't have him, must get rookie this week before the price rise, because he could easily be 250k. Let's just check his break even so far without his round 3 score. So negative 56. So Jordan Dawson, Dylan Stevens will jump up in price. he potentially could be someone like 250k this week if he scores another 70 plus almost. So get him in, guys. He's a rookie that a lot of people skimped out on because they thought other players were going to do better. And obviously that hasn't worked out. Find the 40k somewhere for him or the 50k from an Owens to him. Find it somewhere because you must get him in. Josh Ward. So glad he didn't score a 35. I think he kicked a goal, which was really good. 53, that's kind of what you want, really. And Connor McDonald. Okay, Connor? I think it's Connor. So another 55 from him. You got to be happy with that score. Rookie on the bench making you some money. Owens, we spoke about last week. Scored a 2 and then got dropped by St Kilda. So dud rookie at the moment. Just wait and see, really. If I had enough cash to upgrade him to someone else and a free trade, I probably would do that. But this week's no. Big Gawn. So Gawn had 50% ruck time. Scored an 88. Had horrible efficiency. Didn't mark. Didn't really intercept. And he looked a bit slow. He looked a bit disinterested. And that's kind of the worry. I know some people are tossing up between bringing in a Hayes and R2 Hayes and then using Gawn to upgrade. You could do that if you didn't have other problems on field, but I have other problems on field. So Gawn's a hold for me this week. Grundy did Grundy things. I think his opposition didn't score that great either. So happy with the 101, I guess. This year seems definitely to be the year of rucks don't score so well. And the guys who took a cheaper ruck instead of spending, the 1.4 million that we all did in R1 and R2 are doing a lot better because of it. And that's just something that, those identifying those pre-season challenges that you have, they worked out well for them. Dixon on bench, and then Dunkley. So Dunkley 97, he's still going to be an R1 to 6. So he's still going to be a forward 1 to 6. So you're happy with that score. Butters, big 136, pretty happy with that too. Cornelio, kicked 2 goals, did really well in the midfield. So can't complain. Cherry, 120. So definitely seems to have cemented his R1 position at North, which is fantastic for us owners. He's a guy that you must bring in this week if you don't have him, and he just looks good. Rochelle, 58. He's a rookie. He's a small forward. He did play a little bit of time, I think, through the mid, was used as that pass player. It's probably his worst game of the year, but he's only played 2 games, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. He's still a guy that you got to have. Jack Hayes definitely fallen off a little bit. Had a bit of a slower game, I think, than what people were expecting. But what can you do, really? I'm hoping he doesn't get dropped by St Kilda this week. But it could happen with Ryder coming back. And that's kind of one of the worries about people playing him as a ruck in the R1 or R2 position, is that he could just simply lose his spot. He didn't kick any goals. He had okay hit outs, missed a couple of marks. It's something to worry about with the guy that's just come into the team. Round 1 was fantastic, but round 2 is like, I loopholed Baldwin with Hayes. Sorry, not Baldwin. I loopholed Durden with Hayes this week. And it obviously worked out better. Durden looked okay. I think his calf was a bit funny. But Carlton had 2 guys that kicked 4 and 5 goals respectively. And they were the key forwards. So if your forwards are marking, your small forwards generally don't get the ball. And that's what we saw from this game. And Martin didn't play. So end of round 1, I made 2 trades. I went Crisp to Hall. And then I went Baldwin to Hayes. And that's why I've got 34k left over, as you can see up here. So heading into round 3, what do I want to do? I want to really go and shore up my cash generation. Bring in the guys that I really think are going to make it to that 400k mark, that are really going to keep up the scoring. Maybe not as much as what they did in the week previously, but keep up that scoring there. So that's what I'm looking to do. In this week, I will be using a trade boost. It's a bit controversial, but I'm happy with the decision. So my 3 trades this week will be Whitfield out. I'm also going to trade Mr. Berry out. And I'm going to trade Corey Durden out. If I had enough cash to do an Owens out instead of Durden, I would have done that. But I simply don't. And getting Durden out means I can loophole either Hayes or Martin. Not loophole, but have them playing. Durden seems to just be like a slow burn at the moment. And the guy that I'm bringing in is not a slow burn. So it kind of works out, but not really. This week, I will be bringing in Mr. Patrick Cripps. Looks to be a keeper for the whole year. Can't pass up a 147 average, costing 454k. I think he's the highest brought in player this week, and that's something that you really want. If you're missing out on Cripps, get him in. Over a Heaney, over other players. Maybe not over a Hewitt, but you got to get him in. He's going to be unstoppable for the next few weeks. And he does better. I said it in the preseason. He does better in a team where he doesn't have to carry, where he doesn't get all of the focus from opposition midfielders. And that's something that's hurt him in previous years. Whereas this year, Hewitt's in, Chera's in, Walsh looks good, Cripps is on fire. So my next trade will be second biggest brought in player this week. Look, not Matt the Ball, Jake Bowie. I think his name's actually pronounced Bowie. We'll hit up JD for that. But yeah, looks really good. Seems to have a set position in the Melbourne backline, especially with Salem out for the next few weeks, and potentially even when Salem's in. We don't need to keep him for the whole year, but he's going to make a lot of cash next week, and that's what we want. So hold him until round 6 or 7 when we can actually upgrade him to someone else. The last player we're going to bring in this week is a guy that I never thought I would actually bring in, but I've decided to do it. So, Big Will Brodie. He looked like he was everywhere. Even when he didn't get the ball, he was in the contest for Freo. And that's what we want to see. We wanted to wait and see what he actually looks like in the team. He does look good. Fife's out for a few more weeks. I think Mundy's out this week. And he just looks good. He's not something that Freo's had before. And I'd rather have him making cash. What's his projected this week? We'll have a look. So he's going to make 50k. If he scores a 67, that's 50k in the bank. And that's what we want to see. I'm going to offload him maybe around the 400k plus mark. And for the trade, that's definitely worthwhile for us. Him and a rookie equals a primo, basically. And that's what we want to see. So confirming that. And let's just go him on field. And I think that's probably about it, guys. So this week, just looking at, I'll move myself. That's not right. Move myself over here. So this week, we're just going to look at who we think are going to be good VC and C options. So I don't think anyone from the Dogs Sydney game is going to be a good option. I think it's going to be a really tightly contested game. And I think if you go Jack Mcrae VC, it may hurt you a little bit. So that's why I'm not going to go them. If I had a Petrarca or an Oliver, I would 100% go VC on them for this game. No one really in the Adelaide game. And that's why with GWS versus Gold Coast, I'm going to VC Tuke Miller this week. So VC Tuke Miller into probably Lockie Neal or even Cripps. So even Cripps captain. But we'll just wait and see what happens with that. How about we go and put Owens on field for Stevens. And he'll be our captain loophole so far. So let me know how your team's going, guys. How was your week 2? If you have any questions, throw them down in the comments. Check out some other videos I've put out this week. We had a mega collab with 12 other creators on there, and it was a really fun video to record. So have a nice day. Keep trucking. Bye.